Hi, Earth Angels. It's Elaine from Renegade Spirits Tarot with your moon reading for this lunar week. We have a new moon. It is a new lunar month, so time to think about over the course of the next lunation. What do you want to cultivate and bring into your life and work towards while the moon is waxing? And then when the moon is waning, what are you going to release? So we'll start by just looking at this week for the waxing crescent, and we have a lot of other exciting things going on this week too. It's going to be the winter solstice. The sun is going to move from Sagittarius into Capricorn. So let's take a look at what's going on for this week. All right, so we've got our beautiful moon card ready, full of mysteries and secrets to be revealed to us for this week. We will pull cards to correspond with symbols on the moon card, and that will shade how we interpret the messages for this week. So as I shuffle the rest of the deck, I really want to call in on all of the fairy spirits and the spirits of nature, and especially the tree spirits. So just give us the best intel from the spirit world and all of the guidance that we need to navigate through this darkest moon of the year, the one that takes place, that has the winter solstice included within it, beginning with her waxing crescent for this week. And as I shuffle the cards, let go of any events in the past week and let go of any events from the past month, as we are now beginning with a new moon today. I will cut the deck in half and pull the cards for our reading this week. So it comes as no surprise during this darkest time of year. We have the solstice soon approaching, and we're in a crescent moon. We're on a new moon, no moonlight in the sky tonight. That we have two of the very few cards within the whole pack that have a black sky in the background, completely dark. Not a great feeling of optimism with any of the cards in the pack that have the blackened sky. But within the darkness too, while fear and uncertainty can lurk in the parapets of the darkness, so can great potential, right? The darkness, connecting it with, lunar themes for the moon readings, like the darkness can also be like the darkness of the womb, or the darkness of the soil, a source where things are going to come out of, the darkness of the cosmos as stars are born throughout the galaxy. And another thing to point out about this week's reading is that all of the cards have come up in reverse. And it's interesting because this card, whose position corresponds to the path in the moon card, so what we are to follow for this week, we have the Tower. And it's funny that all of the cards in this reading are in reverse, because when this card is upright, it, along with the Hanged Man, is one of the only two cards in the pack who, when it is upright, the figure is reversed, meaning, right, the feet is over the head of the two figures on this card, so that when it gets placed in reversal, it actually becomes upright. So the tower, and we kind of talk about the tower almost every week because of the symbol of these two towers in the moon. And I often talk about how I see the tower and I see these two towers as being constructs of the ego. And so here in the Tower card, we see the ego being struck down by divine intervention and the crown getting blown off. Kind of makes me think of that song by Accept. But the tower kind of like experiences, or sometimes when the tower comes up in a reading, it can represent a time where we feel a total lack of control. I'm thinking about those, nightmares you might have of teeth falling out and those types of feelings. But having the tower as the path to follow this week and in reverse, where the figures have now become upright, it's like calling on us to get a handle of control over those external things that make us feel that we have no control. To come into the understanding that, we do have a little bit of control over our destiny. Are you gonna fall to your demise, or are you gonna fly through the sky? Right? So having the tower in reverse, I think we're being asked to fly through the sky this week. And what's also, interesting about having this card as the path to follow for this week is it's kind of calling on me to pay extra attention to the two cards that came up in the tower positions for this week's reading. So we have the Justice card in the position of the Western Tower, representing our fantasies for the week. And then we have the 10 of Cups in the Eastern Tower coming up as representing our fears for this week. So let's pay extra attention to the fears and fantasies. And it's interesting too, because this Justice figure came up, and we have a what appears to be like a female energy crowned figure, which is what we have right here with the tower in reverse. And then with the 10 of Cups, there's 4 different figures, but this flowing red mantle on this figure, it reminds me of the flowing red skirt on the mother figure in the 10 of Cups. And this like red flowing cloth energy reminds me of like the red flag on the Sun card, or the red feather coming from the headband of the child on the Sun card. We also see that same red feather on the Fool and on the Knight on the Death card. And we also see it in this Page of Wands, which has come up in the crayfish position of this reading. So this is the position of the part of the unconscious that needs to come out into the light in order to follow. So yeah, even though this is, like a mantle and not a headdress, it circles around the figure's head. So it's interesting, like the two symbols I'm like feeling most drawn to on these two figures is kind of like what's going on at the top of the head, like what's going on with the crown chakra. And I mean, we see the crown is a significant symbol here in the tower as well. So, you know, our crown is our antenna to the divine. You know, it's our rabbit ears that help us pick up radio signals from the spirit world. So also too, I mean, like, usually I think of the towers in this reading as things, you know, that are kind of superfluous mental influences and not to be paid attention to. But having the tower in the path card for this week is kind of having me do the whole spread a little differently, because it's kind of like saying to me, you know, instead of thinking of our, you know, fantasies and our fears as distractions for this week, you know, let's look at them as things to really be paid attention to, you know, that are really going to clue us in to our heart's desires. And our heart's desires can be like our, you know, GPS navigator for figuring out where to turn on this path for these difficult times. So I want to say too, with the reversals in this spread, as seeing the tower in reverse as a calling for us to fly through the sky on our witch's broom and fearlessly take more control over our lives, you know, have more of a sense of control of how we are navigating the rough rapids. I kind of, as I go through the cards, you know, want to turn them upright, because I think their reversals all kind of perhaps speak to the lack of control that we're feeling in all these different areas of the spread. So we'll kind of like get in control by putting that archetype on its feet. So for Justice in the position of the Western Tower, our fantasies for this week, and paying close attention to the symbol of the crown, I think we're fantasizing about being an authority figure in our own life, fantasizing about being the one who makes the laws, who makes the rules, instead of just being subjected to karmic laws and the laws of physical possibility, but also just being, you know, subjected to the ways of the people around us, you know, the habits of society, the routines of the people we live with, you know, just feeling, you know, this lack of authority, this lack of control is what has given us this fantasy to pay attention to for this week. So we do live in a wide universe where we cannot dictate the spiritual and physical laws that, you know, manifest our own painful existence that we are forced into. But we do wear that crown of supreme authority inside our inner temple, where we create our soul, the temple of our bodies. So make sure things are right within your inner world this week. Use the scales to balance your chakras and the sword to cut out any bullshit that you have been dumping into your temple, like refined sugar, artificial light from your phone and television, and other poisons of the modern world. And I think with this 10 of Cups in our fears position for this week, and you know, thinking about this flowing red mantle and this flowing red, you know, skirt from the mother, kind of makes me think of, you know, I talked about how it made me think about like the banner on the sun card and like feelings of happiness and like authenticity, and spirit, you know, like this red feather, and how the fear is like all of this fear around family and like who we are connected to, and especially how that relates to this time of the holidays, because the red, you know, this like red flowing thing that I'm just picking up on visually also makes me think of that red thread that is used in magical ritual to bind things together. So it's like, where are there like strings of attachment that need to be cut? And then like, where do we need to reinforce that connection with family? Because like, I think a lot of the fear around family can be kind of related to two different things. It's like for so many people with the holidays, there's so many of us that have abusive or toxic family members that we don't want to have to see on the holidays. But maybe we feel obligated to see because they're still connected to other members of our family that are in our chosen family. And just, all of this like anxious holiday stuff, or even sometimes if that's not, a fear that's related to actual plans that you have to make or not make. For a lot of us, just the holidays can like bring up a lot of trauma related to family and just different types of memories or nostalgia. The holidays, as well as being a time of beautiful connection and love, can also be really painful for a lot of us. So there's that aspect. And then there's also the aspect, that's unique to this year with the coronavirus, where so many people are not able to physically connect with the people in their chosen family, because they don't want to risk possibly transmitting this virus to somebody, or just travel isn't a good idea or whatever, So thinking about this, red river of connection, the blood, and it's like, there's, none of those things are things that we can control. So it's like the lack of control aspect with this card, I think, is obvious. But where the control comes in is, understanding that you choose your chosen family. You choose who to include in your feeling of who your family is. And that can be difficult and complicated and not always straightforward. But thinking about the people who are in your chosen family and like understanding that you are always connected by that thread, whether the people that are in your chosen family are the people that you're going to get to spend time with during this dark time of year or not. So that is the sense of control that we can get from putting this card upright. So looking at the cards that are in the dog and wolf positions for this week, it's interesting. We have both of these curved figures, and they're both kind of curving towards this Western Tower, this Justice card, which I talked about, bringing that sense of inner balance to the self, cutting out things that are not serving our temple. So maybe that's a message to keep in mind as we talk about these two swords cards. We have the 6 and the 9, 69. To me, the big difference between the 6 and the 9 is they both represent, difficult journeys and difficult times. But to me, the biggest difference between these two cards is that the 6, we have the group, we have the connection. It's the lovers and the major arcana. And with the 9, it's very much about the individual and doing things alone. And that last, difficult stage of any spiritual process, it can't be done with the teacher. It has to be done alone. It's the hermit in the major arcana. So the dog is what supports us in the tame aspect of our life. And I feel like thinking about, like the group and, the swords are the mental, right? And thinking about, the sword and the justice card this week, I talked about how it can be, cutting things out that are not healthy for us. And thinking about, like how does the group support us in the tame aspect of our life? To me, it feels like, it's like you have a lot of good people around you that want to support you and that want to help you in making healthy decisions for yourself. But this like reversal, the lack of control in this aspect is, you know, maybe you go along too much with other people, and other people's habits and what works for them. So it's like you do have these people around you that want to support you, but maybe there's an idea here too that maybe your needs are a little different from them. And instead of just going along as a passenger in someone else's journey, let other people support you in different ways. Let them support you on making your own decisions for your own journey and what is healthy for you, and not just doing whatever the people that are around you are doing. Because it's like they're here as a support. They love you. They support you. They want you to be, successful. This is like, the tame aspects of your life, or like job, work, even just like relationships, anything that's more like public aspect of your life, versus the wild wolf is more like the inner life, the spiritual life, like the wild side of yourself. So yeah, you have all these awesome people that want the best things. Okay, let me put it this way, is the most clear way to say it. You have people around you that want the best things for you. They want that for you, so feel that, but understand that they're not the ones that know what is the best for you. And what's the best for them is not the best for you. So it's like you really need to come into the power of feeling that for yourself, but still feel the awesome support that these people give you. And the wolf, the wild aspect of our lives, the spiritual life, we have the card of the 9 of Swords, right? And we have this, blackened sky, blackened background, like the Tower card, this sense of darkness, but also of great potential. So the 9 can represent, it's like people say it's worries, night terrors, anxieties, but coming up as what is going to support your wild spiritual life this week. It's about working through problems alone, and the swords are the mind. It's like they can be some of the most difficult problems we have, are the problems with our mental health. For people that have migraines, I know a lot of people whose migraines are getting worse or who are changing right now. It's like the feeling of being a stranger in your own mind, whether it's because of mental health issues or neurological issues, is one of the most terrifying experiences that we can go through, and it can absolutely make us feel completely out of control, right? So I think like the lack of control and the wild side of our lives right now, it's like, it's like our own minds.
Hello, me. Meet the real me.
And to get in control of that, I don't think it's going to be about seeking advice or solutions from other people. I don't think there really is an answer for us in what the solution is this week. It's just about working through it and experiencing it, on our own, and using it as a vehicle to get to know ourselves. With the 9s, it's the Hermit and the Major Arcana, and all the 4 minor arcana, all the figures are alone. It's also connected to the moon, because the moon is number 18. So when we take the cross sum, we get 9. And there's no human figures in this card. But there's this idea of this long path that we take through the night. So I feel like it's connected to the idea of solitude in that sense. Or it's almost like we are the figure on the card, and like we are looking at the path in front of us. So like it's a point of view kind of card. But yeah, like how to take control of our minds, to bring a sense of control of this 9 of Wands that's going to support us on our spiritual life, is that through solitude is actually when we feel the greatest unity with the divine, right? That's like the secret of the number 9, is that it's the card of, solitude, or like aloneness, But then the secret to that is that you are never really alone, right? You have like your spirit guides in this particular card in this spread. We see them as the dog and the wolf. But yeah, really just working through this week by yourself and with your spirit guides, you know, not needing any counsel elsewhere is going to help you feel in control, and you're going to get through it. Actually, let's go down to the card that is in the crayfish position. We talked about his red feather for a moment, but we didn't really talk about the Page of Wands. The pages, they represent that childlike curiosity with their magical tool. You know, it's like they're holding it for the first time. Having the page in the crayfish position, the unconscious, to me, it really speaks to the inner child. And thinking about the inner child in terms of, you know, like the reverse tower and all of these reverse cards, this feeling of like a lack of control. It's like when we are a child, like that is kind of really the only time in our life where we don't have control over anything. You know, we're completely just where we are. We don't really have any control over our surroundings, or we don't really have any control over the people that we spend our time with. We don't know anything. So anything that's bad is just so normalized for us. You know, we don't gain tools on how to deal with it or escape from it until we get older. And it's like thinking about how, yeah, like circumstances in your childhood that you were just victim to, that you couldn't escape, that you didn't have any tools to deal with. And thinking about how that like affected your, you know, curiosity for creativity and exploration and passion and things that are symbolized by the wand. And it's like turning it upright to feel control again, to me, is to like tap into that playfulness and feeling of natural curiosity and desire for adventure and exploration of the Page of Wands, and take that into how are you gonna fly through the sky this week on this reverse tower, you know, instead of just falling down into despair. You know, I think it's also a good time to connect with, you know, the wands are like conduit to energy. Connect, you know, I talked about balancing the chakras with this scale and the Justice card, but yeah, connect to your inner, you know, if you call it prana, chi, but your inner like energy flow. Put your hands together and, you know, feel them generate that heat and that life force this week, and use that to propel you forward. The card that represents the cards in the position of the moon and the yads this week, we have Judgment in the position of the moon, which represents our mind, and we have the Five of Swords in the position of the yads, which represents our mind's physical manifestation into reality. So I always look, you know, I look at this with our path, and I think, you know, do I like this for us this week, or do I not like this for us this week? I do not like the Five of Swords for us this week. I think we need to change our mindset a little bit to change the outcome, right? Because we have the power to do that. So the reason why I don't like the Five of Swords is because I feel like, you know, we're being called to take control, you know, and to wear that crown of authority in our inner temple. And to me, like the Five of Swords, I'm feeling that we could be kind of like some of these figures in the background, where it's like we could have a tendency to fall victim to other people's words and opinions of us, and other people's attempts at bullying, you know, and letting, basically like using other people's words and how we think about ourselves instead of our own words and how we think about ourselves. And that's why I don't like that as the manifestation of this week, the way that I am interpreting it for this particular reading.
Don't shine me just girl, before you leave in an eye. Don't shine me, mama.
we have the Judgment card. So in the Judgment card, you know, we have a scene of revelation from the Bible, but you know, this idea of judgment, you know, I'm taking it more on just like a literal mundane sense of the word judgment, you know, and having too much judgment in our minds and having too much judgment of, you know, ourselves, but also other people. I think it's more on the surface. It feels like maybe we're having a lot of judgments about other people and other people's motives and things like that. But I think ultimately it's like, and you know, thinking about this Nine of Swords supporting us as the wolf, supporting us in the spiritual aspect of our lives. It's about, you know, getting real with ourselves and what's going on when we're alone with ourselves. And I think it's like we're having way too much, you know, there's a root of way too much judgment of ourselves, and that's why we're being judgmental of other people. And then it goes both ways, because like we're being too judgmental of other people, and then that also allows us to let other people's judgment of us affect ourselves. So it's kind of like this toxic two-way street. And also, you know, since this is kind of a reference or derivative of the revelation in the Bible, you know, it's like we have people coming out from their graves, coming out from their coffins, you know, to receive the final judgment, you know, if they get to spend eternity in heaven or not, or, you know, whatever that is about. But, you know, to me, having it in reverse and like having this on top of the reading is kind of putting extra significance on those coffins. And it's kind of like saying this is like dead stuff. This is like beaten to death stuff that is kind of at this point only existing in our minds and is not really even existing anywhere else. You know, it's like it's stuff that's already happened, and it's not stuff that is in the present. So it's like really need to let go of this. So I think the way to change the Judgment card this week, I think like the good card to replace it with, well, of course we have the Tower, the path to follow. You know, I like to think of these figures, well, it's in reverse, that they're flying through the sky instead of falling through the sky. So, you know, it's like that idea of flying on and moving on from things. But really, I think the best card to replace the Judgment card with this week is the Page of Wands. And, you know, going back to the purity of the inner child and the curiosity, you know, there's no judgment in the Page of Wands. There's only the desire for experience, you know? So tap into your desire for new experiences, and let go of your judgment of all of these dead things. So that is my final word I want to leave you with from this reading that kind of had a lot of, you know, different messages. But the final one I really want you to think about during this waxing crescent, this new moon energy, fresh start for the lunar month, is judge not yourself, judge not others, and listen not to others' judgments of you. Fly high. I'll see you for our next reading right after the solstice. It's going to be for the first quarter moon on December 21st. Peace.